12 hours is a long time to ponder your navel and think about everything under the sun, surrounded by people whom you don't know, in a space that is smaller than maybe like a hotel lobby. Can we learn anything about gratitude in this kind of an environment? That's next on this episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast.
This is the Gratitude Journal podcast.
Welcome to autumn, my friend, here in Northeast Ohio. It is a brilliantly sunny and blue skies, not a cloud in those blue skies, and we are locked and loaded for this episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast, the podcast that attempts in various shapes and ways and forms to find gratitude in the things that are around us, the things that we already have at our disposal and may not be aware of. And hey, I am no expert at gratitude. That is a given. So I'm in the same boat as you all, as we used to say in Eastern Tennessee. So I'm trying to grapple with it myself, but I hope in trying to spill the beans as far as, you know, day-to-day, month-to-month events that occur in this guy's life, that maybe you and I can discover together ways that we can be grateful for the things that we have. It's been a challenging fall so far, as you know, because of my lack of audio involvement with episodes regarding this podcast. However, it doesn't mean that I haven't been thinking about you. Because I have, and hopefully you've been thinking about me. Okay, that sounded strange, but hey, that's the way things are here in late 2024, as we are a mere half an hour away from the Browns and the Bengals kicking off. And I thought before I got invested in that, because we've spent the last couple of weeks being invested in the Cleveland Guardians, and to no avail, they fall yet again to the evil empire, the New York Yankees. And we will again be watching two other teams in the World Series this year. So I have today, on this brilliantly sunny Sunday, turned my attention to the Browns. But before so, I wanted to talk about emergency rooms. So last Thursday, Donna sent me a text at work and saying, my tummy hurts. And I kind of thought to myself, okay, I'm not really sure what to do with this pertinent information. But I said, well, hey, I'll be home, check on you. I'll make you a cup of tea. There's ginger ale in the refrigerator downstairs, part of the refrigerator downstairs that is not occupied with craft beer. And then she kind of didn't really say anything more about it. And then the next day, her and her friend Jean were going out to lunch, and she even had Donna even had a doctor's appointment earlier in the day that I took her to, and she didn't really complain about anything. And so later on in the afternoon, she texted me again and said, my tummy's hurting. And I thought, okay, maybe you ate like a bad biscuit at Bob Evans. I was unsure. I didn't know. And then her friend Jean said, I think she's not feeling really well because she's sort of perspiring, and, she says her stomach hurts her. So long story short, I said, before I left from work, do you want me to take you to the emergency room? Thinking, of course, I'm not going to get an affirmative on that one. And she said, that wouldn't be a bad idea. I went, oh, okay. So that started this long 12-hour odyssey. And by the time we got to the emergency room, it was almost a situation where she couldn't really even walk from the car to the emergency room. Now, granted, the emergency room we go to was about 10 minutes from our house, and it's connected to a rather large hospital chain here in town, and they had just really built this emergency room. And now they're already doing renovations on it. So when we walked in, there was just like construction everywhere, plastic sheeting and that kind of thing. And we had to scan our valuables to get into the emergency room. And it was absolutely jam-packed. Friday evening, Oh my gosh. And so finally we went to a waiting area where she was given an EKG. And then we were sent to another waiting area. And then we were sent to another waiting area. And, time was passing. She's writhing in agony. She's grimacing. And, no one seems to take her seriously except to run all the, regular prerequisite tests. And so if you've ever been in a situation where you're kind of waiting, especially in the emergency room, and you are in pain and you want somebody to see you immediately, nothing happens immediately in an emergency room, unless, of course, maybe you're a gunshot victim, and I've never been a gunshot victim, but there's just long periods of time. And so I want to get all the bad stuff out of the way first, okay? When doctors in an emergency room do a test on you, and you better be prepared to wait like 2 hours before anybody comes out to say anything about that test. They just assume that you have days and days and days to give to them in the emergency room. And, combined with the fact that because of the construction in the emergency room, there was basically people just like cramped in like sardines. And so you're forced to kind of sit across. I can still in my head remember the people who sat across from us at various times throughout these various waiting areas that we were sent to and then sent back to, that, you spend an inordinate amount of time in front of these people. And, I'm trying to comfort a person who is, holding her stomach area and kind of like rocking back and forth in pain. And then, you're waiting for just like the slightest indication that some medical professional is wandering in your direction and not in the direction of the person sitting next to you. And when this medical professional does come up to you to share some relevant information about tests, and there were plenty of them, EKGs, MRIs, X-ray. I mean, there was just a ton of stuff, ultrasounds, and, everybody is hearing your information and you are hearing the other people's information. And now, as you're on your 6th, 7th, 8th hour of waiting in the emergency room, the sun now has gone down. It's way past almost the end of the day. And, just the kind of quote unquote ripeness of the room, because these people have been sitting here, for long periods of time, it's starting to sort of infiltrate. And it's not like there's any food around. I mean, there's like a vending machine, and that's it. There's one vending machine, there's one restroom, and there had to at least be 75 people, including people who needed to be seen by people in the emergency room and, people who were accompanying the person who needed to be seen in the emergency room, like me. And it was not a pleasant place to be. The other thing is it was kind of chilly outside, and one positive thing that I will be grateful for is that occasionally someone who staffed the emergency room would walk around with these like warmed up blankets, like throwing a blanket in the microwave and turning it on a minute and then pulling it out. And, people were very much in need of these. And Donna's one of these people. It doesn't take much for her to be cold. And so when you're sitting across from people and you begin to make eye contact with them, and then you kind of look away so you don't make eye contact with them. And after you're sitting in front of someone for 2, 3, 4 hours, you think to yourself, well, should I strike up a conversation, or should I ask them what they're in for? Or, how long have you been here? And there wasn't really a whole lot of that going on, but I'm very grateful for and I'll say just the Hispanic person, because I heard her, and I guess it was her mother, talking in Spanish. I know enough Spanish to know that. And the young person who was accompanying her mother, didn't seem to know a lot of English. However, she was able to communicate to us that she had an extra blanket, like an extra hot blanket. And did you need one of these hot blankets? And I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. So I grabbed this blanket and I sort of draped it around Donna, and she was like, oh, this feels so good. This feels so good, as she's sort of rocking back and forth with stomach pain. And, obviously I'll never see that person again, probably. And I just wanted to say how grateful I was that this person who we didn't know would offer, this extra kindness. And, in the midst of all this turmoil and chaos, I'm very grateful for that. As you know, I'm no fan of Donald Trump, okay? I think I've made references to that, and I never really want to get into the politics of things, but I'm just, a fan of inclusion, and I don't buy, the whole spiel from that segment of that party, and I don't think it makes up the whole party, but it doesn't really matter. These kinds of people they're an immediate turnoff to me. I just don't like it. Do I think Kamala Harris is the best choice? No, not really, but I'll take that choice. So that I'm just saying that right off the bat. And if that bothers you, I guess I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. However, while we were sitting in the ER and being sent to these other rooms, I'm not really sure why we were sent to these other waiting rooms, but I'm guessing it was just to deal with the overflow of people who were coming in on a Friday night, and they had to put people in other places. I was stuck in this room with 4 or 5, 6 other people, and 2 of these people were a couple, and the husband was in for something involving his eye, and both of them were completely draped in Trump regalia. And I thought, oh, great. I'm in a sardine can, with a couple of Trump elites. And I just to look at, Trump Save America hats. And it was just bothering me. And I was already bothered because I'd been there 6 hours and Donna was still in pain and hurting, and I couldn't do anything for her. And they kind of took her off to do another test. And the female part of this couple, draped in Trump regalia, was talking to her husband, trying to find out what was going on with their particular malady. And, she turned to me and she said, honey, your wife looks like she's in a lot of discomfort. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like a stomach thing. And she's been hurting most of the day. And well, I certainly hope that they find out what's going on with her, because she certainly looked like she was in a lot of pain. And I said, well, thank you, for that. And probably 2 hours later, we got moved back to the original part of the emergency room, because I guess they were going to come by with some results from some other tests. And so we sat in almost the same seats that we had been sitting in before. And then, following us was the Trump couple, who kind of sat across from, us in sort of catty corner. And, some time had passed, and then they got called, like somebody came to them and said, okay, we have some results and we're going to go take you over to this place. And so they got up and they were walking past me, and, the woman again stopped and she says, looked me right in the eye and said, have they found out what's going on with your wife? And I said, no, they kind of took her off to do another test. Well, I'm certainly hoping for the best for you, honey. And then she walked away, and I thought, okay, I didn't expect that at all. Like, I didn't expect anything like that. I mean, I momentarily forgot that she was, wearing her Trump regalia, and it was just a very kind gesture. It was just a very warm, inviting gesture, and it's proof positive, I think, that, you can't totally just put someone in a hole, even though I had already done that because I had been witness, to their flagrant advertising for this person that I'm not going to vote for. And I was just kind of moved a little bit by that. Not moved enough to vote for him, but certainly moved the human level of, feeling empathy from somebody else, regardless of their political affiliation. And I was just really grateful for that. Well, it's as it turned out after 12 hours and then finally admitting her that, Donna had like a stone in her bile duct. And so one team said, well, we have to see if we can dissolve that stone or remove it or place it somewhere else or whatever they do. And, we will also try to determine kind of what's going on with the gallbladder because everything else sort of looked okay. And then we found out from another team that, what happens a lot of times when a stone gets into the bile duct, it kind of radiates out and makes these other areas swollen as well, including the gallbladder. And those other areas don't really survive that kind of, I guess for want of a better word, a kind of an infection. And it's just better for them to remove the gallbladder. And so sometimes they say if we remove a stone from the bile duct, then we have to wait the next day to do another procedure to remove the gallbladder. Well, what happened is they just decided to do it all in one day. And so that's what they did. And so I would say a 40-minute procedure to remove the stone from her bile duct, which really was the cause of most of the pain and the discomfort that, resulted from those couple of texts that she had sent me. They also said, well, you know what? She's woken up and we're just going to wait about an hour or so. And then we're going to wheel her right back in and take care of removing the gallbladder. And I didn't really even get a chance to see her between these procedures because they were kind of ready and raring to go. The same person who did the anesthesia for the bile duct was, had time to do the anesthesia for the gallbladder. So they said, we're just going to do it all at once. And so that's what they did. And, that procedure maybe took a little bit more than an hour, and she had to stay a couple of days in the hospital until they were comfortable that, she was good to go. And so we've been home for a couple of days. And so I'm grateful that they discovered what they needed to discover. And even though Donna is still receiving, a lot of, pain, a little bit of pain, and she's very fatigued from all of the anesthesia. I'm hoping that things are on the mend a little bit and that she will continue to feel pretty good. But as I'm thinking about this array of events that happened over this short amount of time and how your world can kind of be like stuffed upside down, I'm thinking of this woman who was sitting across from me, and one of those people who, you're in your seat and they're in their seat and there's nowhere to go and you're just kind of stuck. And so you look at your phone or you look down at the floor and you look across at them and maybe they're making eye contact with you and maybe they're not. And there was a woman who was with her husband and she fell and her knee was kind of in a brace and she was waiting to see somebody, and she just had she had a nice air about her. And as people would walk past or medical personnel would ask her if she needed a blanket, she was very kind to them and very talkative to people. And she was kind of like eyeballing me. And finally she said, "You're worried about your person, aren't you?" And I said, yeah, I am. She said, "It's going to be okay." And then she looked down at her phone, and I don't know, that just stuck with me over the past couple of days that, that you can't buy that level of concern, even though it was just, it was a 8-second, 10-second interlude, and it didn't come from a medical professional. It was just nice, to hear that from someone. And it reminded me that sometimes, you have to break the, in acting and plays and stuff and drama, we used to say, breaking the third wall. Sometimes you got to break the third wall, or was it the fourth wall? I think it was the fourth wall, where you they turn to the audience and talk to them, that kind of thing. Sometimes you have to I don't know, you're in an elevator. I know it's creepy to talk to people in an elevator, but the next day, I kind of, as I was visiting her, I saw somebody who worked there had these shoes on that I liked. And I went, those are really nice shoes. She goes, oh, they're so comfortable. And, just like you broke the fourth wall, and you have to do that every once in a while, and maybe something you say will make someone else feel good. So, her inquiring about that with me, it just made me feel good. I liked it, and I'm grateful for it. So, yeah, that's what we've been dealing with, just 12 hours in the ER and surgeries, and now the bills will come in, but I'm grateful that we have some level of insurance to hopefully help. And I'm grateful that, Donna is kind of on the mend, and I'm grateful for you. And, so break the fourth wall every once in a while, without being creepy, of course. Sometimes it's a good thing. And so there it is. Thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast.